suppose, in all committees.
Call to order, Planning Commission meeting for November 17th, 2025. Roll call. Cutler, not here. Bradshaw,
Here.
Visser,
Here.
Clement.
Here.
McLean.
Here.
Curtis is absent. Everly is here. I guess at this point I'll apologize. I had a personal event come up with no notice last time, so I apologize for missing the meeting. Consideration of the meeting agenda. Any comments on the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a full agenda this evening, but we always have time to listen to you if you have something to say. So we have 2 minutes. Some of the items that we have on the agenda will have a public comment component. So if you have a general thing you want to talk about, fine. If you want to talk about one of the items on the agenda, you may, but chances are there'll be a chance for you to talk later too. So step right up. Please state your name if you are going to make any comments. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Consideration of minutes from the 17th or the 20th of October. Any comments, changes, revisions? I'll move to accept minutes as written.
Second.
Support, or, yeah, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? The minutes are accepted. Conflict of interest, and it's generally been defined in my understanding as a financial interest in any of the projects or issues at hand, or family entanglement with any of the items on. Does anybody have any to disclose this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. New business. It's a public hearing. Consideration of a home-based business of pet cremation service located at 8080 Walnut Lane Southeast in Alto. Parcel is rural residential, and parcel number is 412311 300-063. Ms. Linnae?
Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so following this report, we can also have the applicant provide an overview of the project, and then we would open it for the public hearing. But we have a request by Carrie Dykehouse and the business owner Laura Marks. Sorry about that with the application handwriting. I got that wrong. It's Laura. They've submitted a request for a home-based business at 8080 Walnut. The property is zoned rural residential at 7 acres in area. The business is for pet cremation. They'll utilize an LP gas-fired dual chamber burner, the model number US 75-300. It's an animal cremator, and it's from US Cremation Equipment. They propose to utilize less than 50% of their accessory building for the business. They have a current accessory building. It's about 1,400 square feet in area. One of the issues is that the accessory building was built and we don't have any record of the architectural or structural plans for that building. So if this were to be approved, there is a condition that the building have architectural drawings produce a structural stamp by an architect or engineer so that our building inspector can verify that it was built to code. In terms of the use, they would have no customers visiting the property. All of the pet remains would be transported by the business owners, and ash remains would be returned to the place of origin. There are no other employees besides the owner, the homeowner and the business owner. The application describes that the cremation equipment functions like household machinery because there's no smoke, odor, or open flame, and that emissions are vented and filtered through a closed exhaust system similar to a residential dryer vent. We did send the specs of this cremator to our fire department. They did review it, and they had no issue with the machinery proposed. We did include a condition, if this were to move forward, that they would inspect the installation of that, and provide kind of sign off that it was installed properly. We looked at the applicant's site plan. As I mentioned, it's an existing business. The building, the accessory building is more than 200 feet from Walnut Lane. It's a relatively large site, and this building kind of sits apart from neighboring properties. There's no new traffic that will be generated. There are no new curb cuts proposed. In terms of drainage and landscaping, those are not applicable because there's no changes to the site. There is a wooded buffer along the north side of the property line adjacent to this building. And so there is screening already in place. No new lighting is proposed. There would be no exterior uses. The water supply and sanitary sewage disposal facilities comply with the township requirements. It's well and septic. There would be no signs on the property. Nothing is proposed for signage. There would be no employees, therefore the parking is sufficient in the driveway. I did speak with the Kent County Health Department as well as Eagle and the Michigan Department of Agriculture. I explained what this request was, since it's something new that we have not, in all my years of planning, this is the first. But they said that there would be no permitting required. I was specifically concerned about air quality permits, but that would not be required due to the size and the type of the facility that they're proposing. They did suggest that we include a condition about the size of the animals that would be intended for cremation. They do the person I spoke to at Eagle said that if there's cremation of large animals like a horse or cow or something very large, not a household pet, they do get complaints about odor or smoke depending on the machinery used, but they advise to add a condition that that would not be allowable. In terms of the special land use standards for a home-based business, one is that the size, character, and nature of the buildings and structures comprising the use would not have a substantial adverse effect upon adjoining or nearby lands. This is a rural residential area of the township. These are large lot residential parcels. The building is existing, and there is buffering with landscaping and just the building separation. The standard about there shall be no substantial adverse effect on stormwater or street capacity or traffic. As I mentioned earlier, there are no proposed employees, and the applicant described that they would pick up the animals maybe once a week, but it's on an appointment basis with the various veterinary clinics. They wouldn't be making any changes to their drainage or on site or well or septic. C, the special land use will not have adverse effect on the need for law enforcement or fire protection. We believe that it wouldn't have an adverse effect on emergency services or fire protection. However, this is a gas-fired cremation system. I mentioned they don't have concerns. Our fire department does not have concerns. However, we did include that condition I mentioned previously. In terms of preservation of natural features, there would be no adverse effect on natural features on the property. Pedestrian or vehicular traffic, I mentioned earlier, we don't anticipate any change other than the business partner arriving on the site to conduct the cremation. F is a standard related to sewage disposal and water supply. We have a condition that review and approval from the health department would be required. They don't anticipate any changes to the existing utilities on the property, but the Planning Commission might want to talk further about that and what sort of water supply is connected to the accessory building. In terms of the time of day for the special land use and being compatible with the neighborhood, the applicant said that they would conduct cremation a few times per week, but it depends on the clinic and the amount of pets on any given week. The applicant did say that the ashes are returned to the veterinarian or shipped to the pet owner, so there would be no shipping or receiving. The special land use shall not create excessive demand at public cost for public facilities and services. We didn't see that there would be additional demand at public cost for facilities or services, and that the special use shall be consistent with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. We found that it was a use, although very unique use, and one that we don't have in our township, that it is a use that is can be conducted within an accessory building that's already on the property and has very little exterior impact. In terms of the home-based business standards, I mentioned the employee. There's only one employee. We only allow one employee. One of the standards, though, is Standard C for a home-based business that states no mechanical equipment shall be installed on the premises except such as is normally used for domestic and household purposes. I think this is where a cremator is not a typical household piece of machinery. Certainly, I know they compared it to a laundry dryer. I know back in the day, my house had an incinerator for trash. But you know, we typically don't see this type of thing. I know we see outdoor pizza ovens and things like that, but not a cremator. So I brought that up. And then the standard that not more than 25% of the dwelling or 50% of the accessory building can be used for the home-based business. They meet that standard. All of the other standards for home-based businesses, E through I, are met. When it comes to J, there's a standard that says no combustible, toxic, or hazardous material may be used or stored on premises except in a safe manner, and in compliance with federal, state, and local requirements concerning the use, handling, transport, disposal of such materials. This is where we have some questions that the Planning Commission might want to discuss with the applicant about how ashes will be handled. We do not allow burying, you know, having those ashes buried in the township, and also I believe that there's a either county or state prohibition against that. So that might be something to talk to with the applicant. And then Standard K, there shall be no activity that would interfere with radio or television transmission, nor shall there be any offensive noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odors, heat, glare. So again, this is where the cremator, depending on the design and venting, it may cause odors, and that could permeate beyond the property line. So that might be something to discuss with the applicant. The other standards about parking and traffic, again, are met. So a couple things that we flagged as discussion points. If this were to move forward, we do have a selection of recommended conditions. We did send this report to the applicant as well. And as I mentioned, it is a public hearing. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
At this point, I think, I'm not sure the order. Do we open the public hearing now, or do we?
Yeah, you can
Have our
open the public
discussion
hearing
first.
and you can ask me questions.
I'd like to ask you a question
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
about the standard of review. So when we're looking at a special use permit, is a standard of review basically our discretion based upon whether or not it meets the requirements, or is essentially if it doesn't meet one of the requirements, does it have to meet all the requirements in order to be an approved special land use?
So really good question. It is, a special land use is subjective. So, some of our standards are objective, right? Like only half of the accessory building, that's measurable. We know whether they meet that or not. If they didn't meet that, we wouldn't move forward. The other standards that are more subjective in nature, like excessive glare, it's gonna be up to you as a planning commission after listening to public hearing, and the applicant to determine whether something is excessive or not. What else is unique about a special land use is that you can put conditions on it. So perhaps there's parameters to mitigate some of what could be perceived as excessive. So they definitely have to meet every objective standard. It's those subjective ones that are gonna be
So,
up to you.
So I guess by an objective standard, one of the standards that we have is that basically it has to be customary equipment that's used on a premises, and, that's one of the things that I'm kind of asking about.
Yep, so that would be for the planning commission to say, like, what is customary?
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, I think we'll open the public hearing. Now, this was noticed?
This
to
was
neighbors?
noticed, and the applicant is here if they wanna,
No, we didn't receive any letters or feedback from anyone.
we did not receive
Okay.
anything written. No, we did not.
Well, I guess if the applicant has time to come up and talk to us, that'd probably be a really good idea, and then we'll open the public discussion after that.
Hi, I'm Laura Marks, and this is Carrie Dykehouse, and we're here, Folk and Ash Pet Memorials. Thank you for your consideration. And we have put together the application that I'm sure you all have seen. We heard what she said, and we just wanted to reassure you that everything that we've gone through has, some of the key points are, and is important to Carrie and her neighbors, is maintaining a normal residential appearance and activity level. And if it wasn't for, the dissection of all of this, like, the neighbors wouldn't know that this was happening. It is a smoke-free, odor-free operation, and I have an executive summary I can give you guys if you want to look at that further. But like I said, no noise, no odor, no visible emissions. It's quiet, it's odor-free operation, and we would personally manage the transportation in an enclosed vehicle. So we are very conscious of the neighbors, and Carrie can speak a little bit more to that, but go ahead.
Yeah, so as Laura mentioned, my name is Carrie Dykehouse, and so my husband Matt and I are the property owners at 8080 Walnut Lane. So Walnut Lane itself is just 12 homes, so it's a place where neighbors gather for progressive dinners and happy hour on the pond. So because of that, the idea of starting a business from our property is not something that we take lightly. We've been developing this for more than a year, and while it's certainly not your typical best friends start a business type venture, it is a needed service in our community. We went neighbor to neighbor. There was only one guy that we weren't able to, I stopped by and he wasn't there, on our lane. So we talked to each one, and one of them specifically said, "I just have to say, this is weird." And we were like, we know, we get that. But we also know that we can provide this service with professionalism, dignity, and respect, both for our clients and for our neighbors. So like Lene mentioned, there's no customer traffic, so the cremator is fully enclosed. We call him our chief engineer because it's my husband, and so we call him our chief engineer because he'll come out and check on all the details. So he was able to dig more into how it's odor-free and how it's smoke-free. And so the chamber itself is like a big, it's all one piece of like concrete, kind of like a pizza oven. in that sense, so there's no open flame. And we visited the exact same model on the other side of the state as well, just to see how it's set up and its size and how it's operated from there. So it's just a big cavernous space, and then that's like chamber one. So chamber one, all of the what's the physical, like the materials are burned down at like 1200 degrees, and then any of those gases then would go into the second chamber, and that's heated up to 1700 degrees, and then any of those are burned off before it then is ventilated. There's a side ventilation that would go out of the barn that's just basically kind of like a flapper window, like a vent, and then there's a smokestack that goes out the top. But then nothing is released. That's where it goes through. But it has those two separate chambers, and that's how it burns.
And I will
without-
say that you guys are probably thinking, that sounds really hot. But the way, the unit that we selected is a top of the line unit. So it is fully enclosed, it's insulated, so it's cool to the touch. And it's electronically regulated. So, we have children, we have no concerns with them being around it. We use the example of a pottery kiln. A lot of people have, not a lot of people, but potters have pottery kilns that get up much higher temperatures than that. And so we're confident in the safety, and we're reassured by the fire department giving their stamp of approval.
Yeah, and then as far as like other home, I mean, you probably don't have a cremator in your garage. I hope not. That might be a you thing. But we also know that a lot of our neighbors have machines that are on that gray area of household equipment, like a laser cutter that cuts out, giant things of wood. And anyway, there's barns full of all sorts of different machinery up and down our lane that could lead to that. We also kind of proactively went around, and after we went to each of the 12 houses on our lane, well, 12, my house included, we did get signatures from most of our neighbors, and I say most because a couple weren't home. And then I also saw that a couple of the folks that were in the blue area that were sent the letter are here as well, and I sent them a separate letter. I used this just so it's not creepy that I sent you a personal letter. So I did use this in Access Kent to send them a letter to more fully explain more than just what came in the mail from the township as well, and to personally introduce ourselves. So yeah, that's our main. We love where we live. We're not trying to change the residential feel of it. Our goal is to do this in a respectful and responsible way.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
One.
Yeah.
Any idea, like, if you crank it all the way up, how many decibels it operates at?
I don't know if it says decibels, but I don't think it's supposed to produce any noise at
Yeah.
all. You wouldn't know that it's
The
there.
one we observed, it was standing outside it was a barn similar to Carrie's, and you couldn't hear that it was running out, like standing outside the metal siding. So it's very, very quiet, and definitely comparable to a running car, I would guess, less than that.
And is there like any flame or anything that comes out the chimney?
No.
Nope, none.
And then just moving the animals back and forth, and then the ashes, that's what, you guys will be doing all that?
Yeah.
So there won't be,
No.
Cherry
no.
Valley vet won't be coming out?
No,
You
we
guys,
would,
you guys are doing, basically in your personal vehicles, you're doing all the running of the ashes and the corpses, right?
Yeah, that's why I got a minivan.
Alright.
The minivan can do anything. So yeah, the plan is to use our family minivan as we get started, and then most of the time, and we're learning a lot of this process as well, but at the veterinary office, the proper disposal of animals, or is that the right word? But you have to take care of them within 24 hours, so they have giant freezers there. One of my friends is a vet, and so I asked her to send me a picture of their freezer, which that's not on people's normal camera roll. But so she sent that to us, and then we would have a freezer on our end. So that's where we would go a couple times a week, pick up the frozen animals in black bags. They'd be in the car, and they'd go directly into our freezer until we're ready to process them.
and that would comply with all of the regulations on the Dead Bodies of Animals Act, where that's the requirement for how to handle them properly.
Okay.
So they would remain in the freezer until they were ready to be cremated.
I guess I have one question. Do
Yeah.
you have any actual experience doing this yet?
Good question.
Yes, we have learned through, visiting alternative, competitors, but no direct experience other than, our experience in the process of, putting animals down and our friends that are, veterinarians. But, the company that sells the equipment comes out and does an extensive training.
Okay.
And, they will not, give their sign off until they're confident that, but up until this point, we're confident that we could do that. We could operate it without that training.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. If there's no more questions, we'll open the public comment period, and thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Archie Warner, 7941 Burstone Court. I think I share a property line with the applicant. And I don't have a problem with home-based businesses, and especially rural areas where we have larger property sizes, but I do have some concerns. So tonight before I came, I Googled, what zoning areas are crematoriums normally in, and it came up commercial or industrial. I would also ask you, what are the hours of operation? Are you gonna run it at night, during the day, whatever? That, I think that should be something that is qualified by the applicants. I do have grandchildren. They're in my yard frequently, so I'm worried about air and water quality in the neighborhood. So I would ask that if you want to approve this, that the township take the responsibility for guaranteeing air and water quality in that area, and how you do that obviously is up to you, but I think you should at least test that at least over the first year. And then the last comment I have is that, we're trying to compare this to a vented dryer. Well, I would just tell you that my dryer, while it may be vented, does not have a filter on it to eliminate odors and other emissions. So, thank you.
Andrew Smith, 7909 Burstone Drive. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Quite frankly, I'm opposed to allowing a pet cremation business to operate in a residential neighborhood. A cremation operation is simply not suitable for residential. Basically, the idea alone of a animal cremation occurring in plain view of our property and others, and the proximity to our property, creates emotional distress for my family, my friends, and would disrupt the character of the neighborhood. A cremation operation also poses a clear path to decrease the financial worth of our properties for reasons that I previously stated. I have some additional concerns, actually, just listening to, and some questions along that line. One, we really need to understand how long the animals will be held there. Two, what is the plan to keep those animals in that state? Is there generation noise as backup power to make sure those animals are cared for properly under the animal welfare that's expected? I share the same concern as the previous speaker regarding the enforcement of these regulations, and expect full enforcement of regulations of that quality that we're talking about, maintaining in the Caledonia Township area. Also, just a comment about barriers. I'm not sure the barriers that were described to the north, but how my property aligns. It's a natural barrier. We have a clear view year-round. It opens up seasonally as well, and those are mainly maintained through trees, which we have multiple trees already falling down through the backside of our property. I'm not aware of their property boundary, but I know there's a couple boundaries behind my fence line where there's ash and consistently falling trees, which is opening up the view to this potential facility. So I'd like to understand some more about the process and definitely the regulation, not only from the perspective of that air quality and water quality, but also the safety of the equipment, the potential hazard it may cause if there is a failure, what type of suppression the department's requiring to invest in the facility, make it sure it's safe for the entire township. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Chris Van Meter, 7914 Burstone Drive. Thank you for having us in the public hearing. Like my colleagues just stated, I am opposed to having this in a residential area. If you weren't on the website for US Cremation, which I did in Google as Archie did, it does say commercial, industrial. It has no mention of residential. It doesn't belong in a residential area. As other colleagues suggested, when you think of a dryer vent, I can smell the dryer sheets coming up my driveway, right? So if we're gonna use that analogy, that's probably not a very good analogy for a smell. I would argue or advocate for a consistent air quality investigation throughout the first year, as my other colleagues had suggested. I do also have concerns with safety. We're gonna put this in just our barn. This is not a typical dryer in our barn. My property is kitty corner to this property for the business owners. My previous colleague, his is right back up against the back of their property. I know our kids are in the backwoods quite frequently. I would be concerned about safety of a building that had some kind of equipment like this that was unsafe, unlocked, unsecured, etc., that kids could get into. And I think that was about my concerns. Thanks for your time.
Any additional public comment?
Hi, Ash Petrick, 8081 Walnut Lane. I'm a really close neighbor to where this home-based business is attempting to be installed. And I just want to say that I'm a big fan of home-based businesses. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it is a need in our community. I know them personally. I can speak to their character in terms of just how dedicated and how much they obviously do care about the community and their business and, you know, their customers. They don't take any of this lightly, and I just know that whatever needs to happen, I can assure you they'll make sure that they do, even if it's air quality tests or whatever. But I just want to say that I'm for it, and I'm next door neighbor.
Thank you.
Last call. Anybody else? With that, we'll close the public comment period. And commissioner discussion.
So similar to my colleague, Commissioner Visser, I really struggle with one item in particular. You know, our packet says no mechanical equipment shall be installed on the premises except such as is normally used for domestic and household purposes. And I don't know anybody who has an animal cremator in the normal use of their home. So I'm just having a hard time getting to yes on this project.
Yeah, following up on that, I guess I would look at it the same thing. I look a little bit towards, you know, there's word that there's not going to be an odor or smoke or anything like that, but how do we know that that's not going to take place? If I lived by there, I wouldn't want that risk either. I would also worry about home value. I think it's just more suitable for an industrial area than it would be in a residential area. So I would also have a hard time voting yes on this.
I think a couple of concerns I have were brought up by the residents near them. The one was air quality and how to continue to measure that. I think that's important that we figure out how we could possibly do that. And the other was the security of the building. I didn't even think about that before, but you know, there are people that could go in there, and you know, especially children. You know, I don't think they've addressed how it's going to be locked up or secured.
I personally don't have any concerns about air quality and that sort of thing. I think this piece of equipment probably does what it says it's gonna do and probably takes all the, you know, the offensive bits out of the air before it releases it. I think that's what the whole point of this equipment is. It's specially developed for a crematorium. But that brings me to my biggest problem, which is this to me appears to be a specialty piece of equipment that I wouldn't normally encounter in a rural residential situation. So, I mean, if somebody, you know, I think table saws, I think, you know, one washer or dryer, I don't, you know, you can't run a laundromat, I don't think, on a home-based business. I mean, I think, to me, this That's, I think the operators are great, I think the idea is fantastic, I think the demand is there. I just think you're putting equipment in a spot where it's not zoned to go.
Well, I guess this kind of overrides my concern, which is that it's related, but without a building design or actual installation drawings, we don't know if this is gonna have enough combustion air for this thing to work right in the building. And somebody brought up fire protection, we don't know if there's any code implications for the building official to think about, so at least those things would need to be addressed more completely than they have been up till now. But I'm sensing that it's probably not a good use of time to pursue that, because I don't think we have support on the commission to approve this. So, with that, I'd entertain a motion for or against.
I'll make a motion to deny the special land use request due to the home-based business needing customized equipment that is not typically found in domestic and household purposes.
I'll support.
Is this a voice vote, or is this,
It's a roll call.
okay? Make sure I get the names right. I still don't have them all memorized. Bradshaw,
Yes.
Visser,
Yes.
Clement,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Eberly votes yes. The motion to deny passes.
Just on a personal note, I'm sorry, I do encourage home businesses and everything, it's not the right place for it.
It's a special use even in commercial and industrial, so.
You come back on a commercial, we'll take care of you. All right?
No, don't make promises.
Well, I'm just telling you, I think,
No,
I'm not promising anything, I'm just, I'll give you a fair shake on a commercial for sure, I'll give you a fair shake on this.
thank you very much. Next item of business, on my agenda again. Preliminary site condominium and private road for Oakmere, located at 6096 Whitneyville Avenue, parcel 412302200034, containing 10 units, applicant Eastbrook Homes, Paramount Development, agent Excel Engineering. Ms. Linne.
Okay, this is pretty straightforward. Although it is unique in that the property is much larger than what encompasses a site condo, so you do have drawings in front of you. But the applicant is actually acquiring about 25 acres of land, and a portion of that would be used for the site condominium, and then 4 parcels would be divided off that front Whitneyville. So just to give you that piece of context. So this is a 10-unit site condominium development. The zoning is rural residential. It requires 2-acre lot sizes. The applicant meets all of those requirements. They're proposing 10 residential home sites on a private road. It's a wooded site. The applicant is proposing to have a condo association with draft master deed and bylaws. We don't have copies of those today, but they did state that they would have those available for legal review. The big questions on this property relate to sidewalk and pathways. We do have a sidewalk and pathway ordinance. It states that if you have more than 10 or more parcels, that a sidewalk is required. We do have waiver standards for sidewalks. However, the waiver standards relate to wetlands, boardwalks. If there's impassable features, those would be rationale for waiving the sidewalk requirement. And also if there were fewer than 10 lots, which means 9, and this project has 10. The land division lots along Whitneyville, they are separate from this request. Those are handled via the Land Division Act. I think what is interesting, though, is that the township one day may want to see non-motorized pathway on Whitneyville, especially on the east side of Whitneyville. Our pathway plan has pathway identified up to 60th, but eventually we could perhaps see pathway continuing on Whitneyville into Cascade Township. I guess I mentioned that because I think when we think of sidewalks and non-motorized transportation, it's important to understand the full context. So we have standards for site condominium. This is a preliminary review. So what happens is that the Township Planning Commission conducts this preliminary review. The applicant then addresses any conditions or requirements and provides a final site condominium plan. And that final plan is reviewed by the Township Board. So they must include all the conditions in all the materials that are forwarded to the Township Board. But you as a planning commission see this right now at the preliminary stage. We did include a condition that the township attorney review the master deed and bylaws. And then, as I mentioned, the sidewalks are kind of the remaining item. The applicant did include a letter related to the sidewalks appealing or requesting that the Planning Commission consider waiving those. And I have the sidewalk ordinance here if you have any questions about it. But it is something that is required, and the way that we envision this property, it wouldn't necessarily meet the waiver standards. The Planning Commission could consider sidewalk on one side of that private road, though. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
It is a, I believe it's a public hearing.
Is the applicant
Or
here?
no,
Can
it is not a public hearing, sorry.
we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Kuiper. I'm here on behalf of Paramount Development Corporation in Eastbrook Homes. As Lene mentioned, it's pretty simple, at least more simple than a pet crematorium. So, but you know, we're just here asking for this 10-lot site condominium. It's an 1,100 linear foot long private road serving those 10 lots. And our vision for this site, it really, we'd like to keep it as rural feeling as possible. You know, the rural residential district having 2-acre lots with 200 foot minimum widths, it does really create a certain feel and a certain type of lot, I think, that is very special to Caledonia Township. And one of the reasons, especially that we'd like to seek this sidewalk waiver request is simply because once we grade out for a 66-foot wide easement, then to put sidewalks outside of that, we do start eating into that rural residential feel. We think it's as important for us to save as many trees as possible. And a lot of times in these developments, we will create internally in our master deed and bylaws documents what we call non-disturb zones that run along the side setback all the way up to the right-of-way line. We allow for dead or diseased trees or trees that may cause damage to property to be removed, but otherwise any trees to be removed from any non-disturb or no-disturb zones require our architectural committee approval. And so that's one of the reasons we really want to see the integrity of this site and where the trees are remain as much as possible. And so I just want to call out a couple of the items in the letter. I'm well aware of how this works, but I'm here, so I'm going to ask for the waiver. I know that this is part of your general ordinance and not your zoning ordinance, so there really is no variance request. You do offer a waiver. We don't technically meet those 4 requirements, but I do think it's worthy of pointing out some of the flaws within the way that the ordinance is set up. Part of me, you know, wants to just I agree with the idea that I think sidewalk ordinances are really important. We believe in pedestrian connectivity and safe pedestrian movement through most of the neighborhoods that we do. We have neighborhoods all over West Michigan, and sidewalks are a really important part of that. But in the communities that we do in Caledonia or in Cortland or in Cannon, where they're much more rural feeling, we'd like to keep the rural feeling as much as possible. And I don't believe that on an 1,100-foot-long road with 10 lots requires sidewalks to safely move pedestrians through that very short road. And I think it does kind of take away from the integrity and the scale of the neighborhood that we're creating. Just like you wouldn't put a skyscraper next to a single family, single story house, I don't think a small private road with only 10 lots require sidewalks on both sides of the road. And just finally, I want to point out that one of the reasons for your sidewalk ordinance, it is to create safe movement and interconnectivity between uses. This sidewalk does not accomplish that intent at all. So the intent of your ordinance is to create connectivity and public safety throughout the community, connecting residences or other locations to convenience stores or schools. There will be no connectivity that happens through this sidewalk. And so I just want to respectfully ask for you to consider that. And if it is not something, for reason of the way the ordinance is set up, that you cannot offer a waiver for both sides, we would ask that you only consider it on one side. I think that's at least important for this situation. But other than that, we read through the requirements or the conditions that were listed in Lene's memo, and all of them appear totally fine. We'll be able to meet all of them. I did send the master deed and bylaws as part of the PDF submittal on October 20, but I'm happy to send them again so that you guys have them. But everything else we'll go through with our final submittal to the township board and make sure that we meet all of those requirements. If you have any questions, or if any questions come up during the public hearing, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I'll stay here if you have any questions for me, otherwise I'll go sit down.
Any questions from the commission?
Not right now.
Perfect, thank
Thank
you.
you. So now we'll open the public hearing. If anybody has comments or wants to talk about this particular issue, now's the time. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Commissioners, any discussion?
Sure, I'll go first. I appreciated the comments in the township engineer's letter to drain the road toward the west so that more of the stormwater is detained in the detention pond. So I guess at this point, I think that's a requirement of approval since it's in his letter. And then I guess personally, for the sidewalk, I live in a relatively similar neighborhood. We have 16 homes. Kids often play in our street. I'm trying to find some middle ground that I think makes common sense. So currently the road cross section is 20 feet wide. I wonder if the applicant would entertain paving the road to 24 feet wide, so it's a little bit wider for both cars and pedestrians to share. Could be a win-win for all parties, but also curious what others think about sidewalk as we keep talking.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an interesting idea, but they've chosen to make the road 20 feet wide, and they've chosen that they don't want to do sidewalks. We have a rule that says they have to do sidewalks. I say let them keep the 20-foot road and do sidewalks on both sides.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I mean, you say there's no connectivity. We've got 10 houses here. How many kids are going to live there, and where's the school bus stop? You know, I don't think we should plan to have kids walking in the street to get to the school bus. I know it happens, but this is a chance to avoid it for 10 houses.
I can see it both ways. My parents live in a similar development. I think there's gotta be close to 10 houses, but there's no sidewalk. Doesn't seem to ever be busy enough to warrant it, but that being said, I can understand what you're saying. You know, that now's the time when they're building it to do that, but it does seem like there's some reasonable solution there too, and maybe that's, whether that's widening the road, or maybe it's just one sidewalk.
Well, and, you know, we've talked about this a lot. It says sidewalks, we've allowed paths, we've allowed, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a concrete sidewalk. It could be asphalt pathway. We've even talked about allowing like stone chip pathways, things like that. But we want pedestrian connectivity separate from the road. We don't want people walking in the road. And that's what it's about. And just because we live with it, because it's happened that way for a long time in the past, doesn't mean, and that's why the rule changed, that we have to have it, that we should keep doing it in the future, so. I guess that's maybe the only controversial item I've seen on here. Do you have any comments?
Well, what can we say no to? I mean, as far as like this application, I mean, the only, I mean, they're meeting all the requirements, right?
They're meeting all the requirements,
So we
but
can't say no, we can't tell them they can't have their 10 units, right? We
Nope.
can't- All we're really talking about is sidewalk, it seems like.
right, and the rule's clear on
And
that.
the rule's clear, the rule, I don't think that's not really in our discretion, that's part of the zoning ordinance again, right? That if you got, isn't that right?
It's in our general law ordinance, and it doesn't meet the standards to achieve a waiver from that.
Right, I don't see how we could do it. I mean, if we wanna negotiate something else, you know, that's not in the ordinance.
Yeah.
So I think we gotta stick with the ordinance.
Any other discussion?
Can I come back to the podium?
Sure. If you want to.
Go ahead.
As long as you make it brief.
I just was gonna quick ask about precedent being set. I was trying to review recent site condominiums, and it looks like there is one quite recently that was approved off of Buttrick, and only one sidewalk was allowed, or on a sidewalk on one side of the road. It does seem that there is a precedent for either no sidewalks or one sidewalk, especially in small lot developments. It seems like when you cross a much larger threshold than the 9 or 10 units, it makes a lot more sense, but that has 16 units. And sidewalk was approved on one side of the road. So I would just ask that we be included in the most recent precedents that have been set for your sidewalk rulings, if you will. Sidewalk on both sides of the road is incredibly excessive for 10 lots. We do this all the time. And if the goal truly is safe pedestrian movement, that is successfully met with sidewalk on one side of the road. I live in a neighborhood with sidewalk on both sides of the road, and nobody uses them, and it's a 200 lot development. So I know we don't want to live with things, but people are who they are. And I do think if we want to meet goals and further the intent of the ordinance, the way that the ordinance was written, one sidewalk would be sufficient in this situation.
Might I say, make a suggestion to you, Ms. Guyver?
Yes.
Come back with a plan that's less than 10 units. That's all I have on that, really. So.
I'm happy to abide by what you all make a motion for tonight. I would just ask that we be given the same accommodation that other developers have recently been given.
Understood what you're asking for, but the ordinance is the ordinance.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with,
Yeah, how long ago was
That was a
approved?
long time, that was several years ago.
The Buttrick?
There's not a whole lot of site condominiums of this size that go in, so it was the most recent precedent I could find.
And I don't know how the year of that compared to when this ordinance was updated. I don't have those years.
I'm here, and I figured I would ask. I'm
Thanks.
telling you, I think it makes a lot more sense for there at least to be one
everything that
sidewalk.
you're saying, but then if that's what you want, in our zoning code, in our order, you gotta come back with 9 units or less.
I mean, we want to put housing where housing is allowed, and 10 lots fills this space quite nicely. That makes a lot of sense, so I'm not going to decrease the number of units artificially. These will be expensive lots with hopefully expensive homes to kind of be compatible with the area. I just don't think sidewalks on both sides of the road is compatible with that style
So that
development.
10th lot could easily pay for the sidewalks, I would think.
The sidewalks will be probably a part of then the lot cost. That's how we do our proration for when we set lot costs. So it's not something that any developer or any home builder typically eats. It just becomes a part of the cost for the lot. So as we think about costs and rising and everything getting a little bit more expensive, this is one of those things that just adds to housing costs.
Yeah, so it sounds like the impasse is you don't wanna go back to 9 lots, and we really don't wanna change our view on the 2 sidewalks. So I think kind of an impasse there in my.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
I would entertain a motion.
I'd love to have one.
I move that we approve the site condominium preliminary review with comments, recommendations as listed. Do we have a second? Then we can have discussion.
I'll support.
Okay, any discussion with the commissioners? So I'm suggesting that we approve exactly as written in the recommendations that are listed right now.
Okay.
There's no discussion, we'll have a vote, and this is a roll call vote. Bradshaw,
Yes.
Visser,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
and I'm blanking.
Clement? Yes.
Clement.
I'll help you out.
Everly votes yes. So this goes to the township board at this point, right?
Yeah, they will make the modifications for the conditions of approval, and then they will submit that to the township board. And in between that, we have our attorney review those master deed and the master deed and bylaws.
Unfinished business. Item A, Cherry Valley Resources to reconsider modified setback for the township board's recommendation of 200 feet from property line, resulting in less than 500-foot setback to some adjacent homes. Minimum new setback to homes would be 274 feet. The lands requested for mineral removal activity include 7350 and 7366 Cherry Valley. Applicable parcel numbers include a total of 49 acres, including 41-23-09-326-002 and 41-23-09-301-008. Now, on this, we don't have our township engineer here, who's normally the person we rely
Yeah,
on
we
to
don't.
discuss these things.
We don't. This is an interesting part of our process in that I think you'll all recall back in, I'm blanking on the month, maybe it was April, May, you as a planning commission reviewed the request of Cherry Valley Resources to do 2 things. One was to rezone a portion of the property PMR, planned mineral removal, and the other portion was to consider a waiver of the setback requirements from occupied housing. So the township ordinance has 2 setbacks that we measure. One is from the property line. That's a minimum of 100 feet, and they met that requirement. And you can't waive that requirement either. The other setback we have in our ordinance is a 500-foot setback from occupied dwellings. That setback can be waived. We can consider less than 500. The applicant came in back in the spring and said, we would like to waive that. We would like to have be as close as 154 feet from the nearest dwelling. We had a public hearing, we had people speak about that, some in favor, some against. Some, especially, you'll recall this, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but
Well, I
you
think
know,
this is good for the new members. of the
yeah,
commission.
exactly.
Appreciate it.
So, some of the residents, especially a couple of the most proximate homeowners were against that. The applicant went door to door, held an informal neighborhood meeting, even though, some people were okay with it, others weren't. So, the planning commission forwarded the recommendation. It was, partially recommending approval and partially approval, but not with that reduced setback. So the township board held their meeting to consider this. The township board talked about, and I wasn't at that meeting, trustee Bradshaw was there, but they talked about, how about a 200-foot setback from the property line, which then increases the setback to the nearest house another 100 feet. So essentially, the closest house, instead of being 154 feet, would be 254 feet. So the way the ordinance is written, it says if the township board's leaning or kind of consensus is different from what the planning commission sent them, the planning commission needs to prepare a report and send a report to the township board. So we've never done this before in all the years, 16 years. I was asked that tonight. So this is the report about that request. And so a couple things that the township board considered and some research that I did leading up to this is that other adjacent townships have a 200-foot setback from residential. So we put that in the report. Thornapple Township, 200 feet. Ada is a 200-foot from property line. Byron Township has a 100-foot setback, and then some other, says that some greater setbacks can be considered by the planning commission. Cascade has 200 feet from a residential property. It doesn't say house per se, but it has a 200-foot. And Gaines has a 200-foot setback from an off-site residence, development, or district, and a 100-foot setback from the property line. So these are some items I thought would be important in this report. The applicant is here, their engineer is here. As I mentioned, the setback would be 200, the closest house would be 254 feet from the mining boundary. And the setback from the property line would be 200 feet versus the 100 that they were originally proposing. I can modify this report, I can add things to this report. You can send it with a recommendation, one way or the other. So there's no public hearing or anything, this is just part of the process.
So this is part of the process, the public hearing,
We held it already in
held
the
it?
spring.
and we didn't adjourn it, we closed it, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
So where does that leave us with any additional feedback or comment if we change what we're allowing to happen?
Our agendas are publicly available on our website and posted at the township hall. There was no requirement to do another mailing.
Understood.
Yep.
Well, at this point, I think we've been exposed to the issues, at least some of us. Stan, was this before you were on, or was this
No, I was
just
on.
when you started?
I think you were here.
Tim, do you have any insight from the township board?
Yeah, I'll
Council.
provide a little bit more background. I do think, from what I heard from the board, they like the consistency of the property line offset versus a radius from an occupied home. It kind of creates more of a straight line within the mine, I guess, on where they dig, and that's easier to both track as the mining company and for the neighbors to understand, yeah, they're roughly 200 feet from my property line. So that was one of the positives, and I think the comparison to other units of government showed that ours, at least for this mine, I'm not sure if all mines are 500 feet or just this one, but was very conservative. So they felt like finding a little bit more common ground with what our neighbors are doing was important. And then also included in this packet, something that I asked for both at the Planning Commission when it came back to the board, is a conceptual grading plan of what someday, when all the sand is out of this mine, it'll become a neighborhood. So they'll need to put a road in to service those new lots. and, that's part of our packet, or at least mine, which shows how much excavation needs to occur just to make a standard future road. And that made me feel a little bit better about, the setback, because personally, I still, I struggle with this. I think of the homeowners immediately adjacent on the south side of the mine, and, if they bought recently under a rule of 500 feet and that changes to 200 or something in between, I don't know that that's totally fair, but, I think overall, high level, that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate your comment on the road. That was one of my questions too, is that, the more we can get a picture of how this would develop, I think that's really our long-term concern. I mean, I think the last time we spoke with the folks from the mining company, that they're representing this as fairly well played out. And so it's time to talk about what the redevelopment's gonna be, so. Would you like to come up and share anything with us?
Good evening, Don DeGroot with XL Engineering, and Kim Hermanet is here as well, that's representing the applicant. I think both Lene and Tim did a good summary of what was discussed at the township board relative to the change from 100-foot setback of the property to 200-foot setback. It seemed to be a good concession and compromise. We simply want to mine the material on where it is. The sand is where the sand is, and although we can appreciate the impact to adjacent properties, which no one can paint it as a positive when you do a mining, but it is temporary. And as the concept grading plan after the mining is done illustrates, we can grade up to the property line. So there is the potential for more of an impact that's a permanent when we go to develop the property. And that's what we try to convey as part of our original request to have that 100-foot setback. There's no processing of material, there's no crushing of material, it's simply removing the sand off the site and the access to the north. But we stated our case, we heard back from the Planning Commission, we went to the Township Board, and we're here to say we're conceding to that 200 foot and would appreciate a positive report back to the Township Board. And if you have any questions on the mining, by the way, was, I'd like to clarify, the property was already rezoned. We were simply asking it to be added to the existing permit. And then secondly, with the 200-foot setback, our actual mining of that 49.5-acre piece that we're adding back in, only 10 acres of that will be mined with that 200-foot setback. So much less than that total parcel itself. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there's some details on the plans that have been provided, but if not, yeah, we'll move on.
I did have a question on, and I appreciate the work that's been done along 68th to backfill that area that was mined so close to the road. Is that an engineered fill, or are those just spoils that are there? Is that a buildable area of land now that's been filled back in, or is that, because I know those were spoils from other sites?
Right, right. I've not been part of that, but it's clay material, and typically, if it's compacted the way they're compacting it, it would be a buildable site. But,
okay.
Yeah, there certainly would have to be testing on any type of fill material.
And I'm not gonna ask you to put your license on the line. I was just curious, and you're a little closer to it than I am, so thank you.
You bet.
Is there, I noticed on the previous approval that there's annual reports that are due to the township? Everything current on those?
I believe so.
Okay.
There have been annual reports. Also, you'll note that the renewal that we're working on today expires already May 4th, 2026. So we've been working on this 5-year renewal for a while, and you'll be back soon.
Did we get the corrections from the last meeting? There were some things that were in error in the report. Was that
We
corrected?
did, that was all corrected
Okay.
in the version that went to the township board.
Very good.
Yeah, thanks.
That date of May of 2026, I think originally it said May of 2025. But I noticed that in the updated one that you just gave me this evening, it does say 2026. But it was approved in 2024. What, if it's
Oh,
a
here it
5-year,
says-
if it's a 5-year window, why isn't it 2029?
I think it was because that 2024 was late, very late. It
Was
was a
very late.
few years past the actual
Actual.
expiration
Okay.
of the permit.
Okay,
Blamed on COVID and other things, I think.
okay, that makes sense.
And Commissioner, to answer your question, it does say the reports are due, I think, January 31st of each year, so we should have another one in the next couple of months. As far as
And
annual
what do those
operations.
contain? Do we know? Like, do they have the amount of materials removed?
Yeah, that's part of it. It might talk
I think the
about-
township engineer does a
He
site
does
walk
yep,
too with,
I was just gonna say.
Kim and
Yep,
the operator.
the engineer does a walk. They inspect like signage or fencing requirements. Some of our other mining operations have, different hours of operation or haul routes or ways that they mitigate, blowing sand or other impacts. So those are the kinds of things that our engineer reviews annually.
I'm sorry, I just kinda had a question about when you were talking about wrap-up. So we're essentially saying, what you're asking for is that you wanna be able to mine up to 200 feet of the property line, right?
Within 200 feet, yes.
Yeah, within 200 feet, you wanna be able to remove
Within or
gravel
up to?
Up to, right?
Up to.
Up to.
Yeah.
Up to 200 feet of, the property line, and so, what you mentioned something about, I guess, grading at the end of the project? Did you say something about that? Like, when you're done with your mineral extractions, did you say you plan on, or you would be able to grade up to the existing lot line? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. So basically, once you cease gravel operations, so then you will operate within that 200-foot area, and then you're gonna be grading it out after that. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say that would be an option. We haven't looked at the ultimate plan other than the concept that we've presented. Right now, we show 13 lots there. Maybe there would be 10 lots, maybe there would be more, but we'd have to come back to you with all our stormwater detail, all our grading detail, and your township engineer would review that. But what we're simply saying is your ordinance does not require any type of buffer off of adjacent property lines with any grading
No, I
operation.
understand that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I fully understood what you were saying. And then, is there any requirement in here about basically the grade at the edge of the operation?
3 to 1, right?
It's 3 to 1 or 1 to 3 slope from that 200-foot setback down to the bottom of the pit has to be no steeper than 1 on 3, and that's what our mining grading plan illustrates.
All right, appreciate that.
You bet.
I know this isn't necessarily a public hearing, but I do see some members of the public. I don't know if you wanted to give them an opportunity to speak, but.
Well, I'm not a parliamentarian. I'd like to not shut anybody out, but anybody have any thoughts on that? The non-binding comment period?
Just go open it up.
Yeah. If anybody has comments or would like to talk about this issue, please step on up.
My name is Ronald Hicks. I'm on Willow Point, the street just south of the mine here. I'm one of those folks that had bought the property in April of 2023. I would not have bought that property if I knew the end of the street, they're 70 yards away, there'd be an industrial mining operation. I don't think other people would. So when it comes time for someone to sell, I think it's a serious property valuation issue. I do believe that there's going to be noise. It seems impossible there won't be. In fact, it feels like that's being somewhat stipulated here. It's just gonna be temporary, is what I keep hearing. But temporary is probably for the rest of my kids growing up in this neighborhood. What I heard on the Board of Trustees meeting, could be 2031, maybe quicker, just depends on how quickly sand is selling. So this is kids, me raising my family. I spent quite a bit of money on this home. This is where I want to live, but I don't want to listen to the drone of trucks. I don't want to listen to the beep, beep, beep of other earth-moving equipment. I don't want to feel shuddering of big trucks moving. Again, for golfers, 70 yards is not very far. You know that it's just a short chip away. This is what we'd be living next to. In 500 feet, to me, and I reviewed this before I bought the property, that was sufficient to me. I thought, okay, good. There's another home between me. There's another 500 feet. It seems to be a well-run mine. Okay, right, I can live with this. It's a lovely area. It's peaceful. It's be a wonderful place to raise a family. It won't be peaceful. And this idea of being temporary is, this is 11 hours a day, 5 days a week. Doesn't even say there's a break for holidays. This is what's in the ordinance. 11 hours a day, 5 days a week. And they can do 6 hours of work on Saturday. This is not temporary for my life, for my kids' life that are gonna grow up there. There's 12 kids on the street. We're always out. We're in each other's yards. There's swimming pools back there right against the property line that goes to the mine. There's 2 swimming pools right there. Kids all play together. This is what we'll be seeing. This is what we'll be living with in this somewhat temporary setting. And I understand, right? Sand is needed and sand has to be dug out. But like they said, sand is where the sand is. Well, the homes are where the homes are. This is a residential area. This is not an industrial area. I do believe that this 500 feet needs to be respected to keep this as a peaceful residential area here in Caledonia. And that's what I'm counting on, and that's why I'm asking for you all to support my desire to keep the 500-foot setback.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Zeman. I live at the end of Miller Estates. I touched the pit, have for 30-some years. I'm glad, first of all, that we're at 200 instead of 100. That's great. And really, I mean, I've lived through all of this for years. Not opposed to how they've handled their business in the past. The only reason I'm standing up here, I cringed when he started talking about grading to the property line. Because I just want to remind you, that entire side of the pit is heavily wooded. So if you're grading to the property line, you're whacking down all the trees to the property line to grade it.
I think what's important to keep in mind there is that would be part of the site plan approval for a development there. It doesn't mean we're giving permission for that.
They can do whatever they want with their land, and I totally understand.
Well, up for that 200 feet, they wouldn't be grading that until there's a redevelopment plan, and that would be noticed, and you'd get a chance to talk about that, okay? Well, it didn't get any easier, did it? I do feel like we're in that bridge period where we're coming to the end of this extractive kind of use of this land. And it would sure be a lot easier if we knew more what it was gonna develop into, or if there was a real plan for that. And to answer our neighbor's comment, you know, how long is it? Is it till 2031, or, you know, at this point, if the resources are moved up to the 500-foot line, we know what the end time is. It's pretty quick. And the people who are living there aren't gonna live with much more mining. But I also see the logic in being consistent with other municipalities that have, I mean, Ada is not a place where people tolerate a lot of industrial stuff, and they're at 200 feet. So I guess I'm not sure where to go with this, and they didn't say we had to say yes or no, they just want a report,
No,
right?
yep, it's just a report. I was just reviewing that. If in considering the PMR permit for PMR rezoning as recommended by the planning commission, the township board considers changes in the terms of the permit or ordinance, the board shall first refer such changes back to the planning commission for a report thereon within a specified time. After receiving the report, the board may then approve, deny, or approve with conditions the application for permit or petition for PMR district rezoning, whether or not the proposed changes therein have been recommended by the planning commission.
In my way of thinking, I think to me, the most important thing here is, I mean, whether they make money on their property or not, I mean, you know, that's their business as far as economical mining of that property. To me, I think what's kind of strikes me as being important is the reliance interest that neighboring property owners had or have in that 500-foot from occupied dwelling. I mean, to me, that seems like it was established when the mining district was officially improved and when the permit was granted, and I guess I don't see why we would come back with a report to the board that this should be changed, other than for what Mr. Bradshaw has mentioned, kind of ease of delineation and, you know, execution. That seems a lot easier to, you know, set your GPS 200 feet from an existing lot line than, you know, varying, you know, a minimum of 500 feet from an existing dwelling, but nonetheless, that doesn't seem to me to be a compelling reason to make a recommendation of a change.
Well, I don't think we don't want to divide the baby. We don't want to be the ones who are adjudicating who wins and who loses here. And I don't think that's our role as a planning commission. I think our role is to focus on what this is in the long term. What is the plan? What does it become once it's not a sand mine anymore? And I don't know how we step from one to the other than to issue the report to the board explaining that we're more concerned about how this gets developed after the fact than, you know, we have respect for the mine and the people's ability to use their land. They have a perfect right to do that, but we also concerned about the rights of the neighbors. So the role of a planning commission is not to necessarily adjudicate those things in real time. It's to define what should be in the future, in my mind. And so, I don't know if any of you have thoughts about that. I mean, Tim, you've got perspective of how this is gonna land once it goes back to the board.
Yeah, I feel like the board is asking us, well, I feel like the board is kind of recommending backwards to us a 200-foot setback. And they want to understand, what do we think the pros and cons of that are, so that they can reconsider. And if we have major cons to it, what do we think again and why? Is really where it lands. But I think the board has greater appetite for change than the planning commission did or does. I mean, we've got 2 new members since it was last heard, so.
Right.
Yeah, go.
I just wanted to clarify just 2 things. When we were here at the planning commission, we were trying to determine what that 500 foot from a dwelling changed over the past 10 years. It wasn't in place when the original mining was done here on this site. So no one could really answer the question. I don't think anybody maybe was on the planning commission or the township board when that change took place, but that seemed to me important, given the adjacent communities that have much less stringent requirements. And then secondly, the existing ordinance does say you have a waiver requirement, which to me, as anybody reading and reviewing and looking at that document before they invest in a home, had to understand that there were waivers available if it were appropriate. And so I just want that to be kept in mind, that whole ordinance did include waivers. And so it's just apparently, due to research that Lene has done, that we have done, it's an excessive setback requirement. And we'd hope you'd at least consider that in whatever report you finalize. Thank you.
I was gonna say, I struggle with the same thing. I'm torn both ways because, you know, the 200 feet, the first thing came to mind was noise, right, for the neighbors and things like that. But then it also seems like we're not in alignment with what could be considered reasonable in terms of that setback. And that was why, not being on this, the planning commission, relatively new here, I was curious to know if anybody knew why the 500 feet was chosen or how we landed there to start.
I don't think so, and I think that's what makes it hard. We don't have a long enough institutional memory to go back to that. And so then, when you're in that position, your natural tendency is to not change things.
Right.
So.
And that's kind of what it is, right? That's where I struggle with, is I certainly can understand a resident that doesn't want to have that. I wouldn't necessarily want to have that closer to my house either. But then I'm torn with, but are we just sticking with it because it's there, right? Even though we know that it might not be the right spot. So I'm glad that we just get to give a report to the township and then they can make a decision. But I can see pros and cons to it, honestly. Like you said, I think it's reasonable, based on what the other communities have, it's reasonable. We go to the 200 feet. But, you know, I certainly can understand where you bought a house thinking it was 500 feet.
Yes.
I would feel the same way, so I'm a bit torn.
Well, in your research in looking at some of these other township ordinances, did they have anything tied in with basically end of mining operations? Like what would happen as far as reclamation or how it would be graded when mining operations ceased or anything like that?
Commissioner Visser, I did not look at that. I was just strictly looking at the setback standards in those ordinances. I've worked in other townships where we do have mining, and it's customary that a restoration plan is provided as part of any permit, so that if a mining operation ceased or went bankrupt, often there's a bond in place so that the site can be restored to that plan. In this area, the zoning district would allow single-family dwellings, and the setback would be a 50-foot setback. So there could be a dwelling as close as 50 feet to that property line, and we do not have any standards that I'm aware of that prohibit grading to that property line for doing site preparation, right? A lot of times lots are cleared property line to do site work. But that's a fixed amount of time, often shorter than a duration of a mining permit. I believe that this standard was changed in 2003, so I wasn't here then either, so that's like 22 years ago. So.
Maybe that's, again, I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of report the board is looking for, but, you know, perhaps that has to be in one of the things that we consider is that, you know, we have to have a more comprehensive understanding of what's gonna happen with, you know, a fairly vital piece of property, you know, it's kind of right in the entryway to our, you know, the gateway to our township here. You know, what can we, you know, if we're gonna have this, if we're gonna reduce the buffer, then maybe there's, you know, some good thought that says that when you're done with a mining operation, if you have a 200-foot buffer, then maybe that, when mining operation ceases, maybe that property has to, you know, be deed restricted, or maybe there has to be something else that essentially preserves that 200-foot buffer. You know, again, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. But that to me seems, maybe that's a piece of the puzzle as far as.
Yeah, so that's part of why I kept asking for this potential conceptual plan. So in order to get a road in here at all, the mine is gonna need to take out more dirt than what is even shown with the 200-foot setback. So just this concept, they're gonna have to push it back quite a bit and probably clear most of the woods based on this 1-on-3 contour. And they have the right to do that. They can develop this property. So that's what, you know, I continue to struggle with. I wanted to find the common ground of, we're gonna need to take most of this dirt out to get a road in that we need to build in the future anyway. So let's just get the dirt out and mine it and go put it in, you know, a highway or a road somewhere else. And, you know, this really kind of satisfied what I personally needed. I feel really bad for the homeowners, but at the same time, an alternative approach for the mine could be, well, shoot, if you just leave it at a 500-foot setback, we've only got a year's worth of material left anyway, and we gotta close, there's nothing left to mine. So then, we're gonna submit this development plan and move all this sand around the site anyway and reuse it to build a new road on our own job. So, at the end of the day, what really controls for me is the new concept of what a new road looks like, because that's the future. And it's only a concept, so maybe it could be pushed a few more feet from the southern property line, but not much. I mean, their connection to Cherry Valley is kind of set in stone, so that's a controlling location. And I guess, is our dialogue enough for the report? What are we?
What do you need, Renee? What do you need from us?
I took some notes, and Ginger is also taking notes, and we can include the minutes that contain this discussion in the report, unless you'd like me to add anything else to this document, or
If I were to summarize, I feel like it would be, this is a difficult decision and there's probably no clear consensus from the planning commission, is the report.
Well, if I could try,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna posit this, that at some point, there will be grading up to that property line for the development of the land afterwards. It seems most proactive if that is somehow integrated with the mining operation, so that we're working towards that final and not just, oh, we stopped at 200 feet from the property line and we don't know what's gonna happen after that. So this is the point where we really need to know more about what that development is as a planning commission than we've been told at this point. And how does it actually get built? Before we can say, Joe, I'll just dig it out till you're 200 feet and stop. Because that puts the neighbors through whatever trauma that puts them through, and then they gotta live through a development process after that. So, from a planning commission point of view, I think we should ask for more than that for the people who live next to it. It's gonna happen anyway, that's gonna get developed someday, but rip off the Band-Aid, get it over with is better than going through 8 years of mining and then going on to some other period of development. I mean, I don't know if that's realistic, but that's what strikes me as making sense.
And when is the renewal up? January, February?
it's in May, and I probably ought to, the fourth renewal was effective May 4th, 2021 for 5 years. So that would expire in 2026. So my understanding is that what we're considering today, I'm sorry about that, is the 4th renewal that would go until 2026. May of 2026.
One thing, if I was gonna add something, John, to that is, I think if we do this, and part of this is predicated on the fact that these other communities are at 200 feet, if we're gonna, give that waiver, or the township has to give the waiver, that maybe we look to amend that ordinance too. So future buyers will know, like, if that's where we're gonna be, let's just get it out there so that folks, when they are purchasing, understand, that 200 is an acceptable setback going forward.
Or at
It's
least
gonna be hard to give this waiver and then not another.
an expectable one, even if it's not acceptable.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I guess I would lean towards waiting for the renewal to make any changes. I'm sure they have a lot more requirements due at that particular.
Why do we wanna do this for a 6-month period? Instead of waiting for the renewal to come through, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if their renewal is up in May, this can be handled in May, I guess, with their new renewal. Because we go through all this, and if they're not renewed, it's all for naught.
So my understanding, this came to us as a rezoning. It needed to be rezoned back to mining because it was changed to something else at some point in time. And the applicant requested to reduce the required 500-foot setback. So I guess I would disagree. We aren't actually hearing the renewal of their permit. We're hearing a rezoning and a request to reduce a 500-foot setback.
Yes.
And this came up at the township board too. It does, buried in the permit, it does say that the last renewal is, the permit shall not be subject to renewal after May 4th of 2031. I think the township board has appetite to extend that should they need to, but currently that's what it says in the permit.
That would be the last time the mine would close then, potentially.
Right, but I think the applicant could come to, whether it's the planning commission or directly the board, I don't know the process, but I think the board would look at extending that based on what I heard at the meeting.
Well, the reason that they need this, the renewal that's happening right now is that they're operating with an expired permit. Right?
That's
Is that
not,
right?
no.
No?
No.
Okay, sorry.
They got over that in 24?
Yeah,
Caught up? Yeah.
I got it.
what this property is not, it's already rezoned. This wasn't a rezoning. It's
They're just
already in
not
the
in the
PMR zone. It just wasn't included in the existing permit.
Hmm.
So we're asking for an amendment to the permit to include this 49.5-acre property. And by doing that, we're looking at the existing ordinance, which has that 500-foot setback from a dwelling with a
Understood.
waiver option. So,
Thank you.
yeah, I think it's, for us to act on this application, it makes no difference now or in May as far as information, but it makes a lot of difference for the applicant to begin to do his mining in that area, pending whatever approval.
Well, it feels like we're light on requirements or guidance on what this report is supposed to be.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again? I'm having a little trouble, Mr. Agree tracking with you. As far as what you're saying, the difference between the permit and the zoning.
So this property right here, 49.5 acres, is not included in the existing mining operation, which is all the balance.
It's outside the permit,
It's outside of the permit.
okay?
So it's not a renewal, it's actually changing the permit to include this property now.
Okay, so you're looking to expand the operation and
Right.
basically add another legal description of this parcel to your mining permit,
Correct.
okay? So there is no change to zoning or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
It is zoned PMR.
And the planning commission agreed with that and sent that on to the township board. We did not give them relief on the 500-foot from a residence. So that's the reason we're still talking about it.
So that, prior to me being here, this property was rezoned to PMR, this 49 acres?
No.
It was added to the permit.
It was rezoned probably 25 years
I mean,
ago.
our recommendation to the board was say, yes, that 49 acres should be part of their mine, even though when we said we wouldn't release the 500 feet, it didn't give them much more sand to mine.
Okay.
But we gave them half of what they asked for, correct?
We don't have a PMR, we don't have a zoning that's a
We do.
mining zoning, do we?
We do. It's the PMR zone. So
Okay.
it's already, you can have a PMR zone, but you still can't mine until we approve your permit.
So
And this land-
This is all currently, everything that he's seeking, that they're seeking a permit on, whether it be existing or adding this 49 acres is already zoned PMR.
It is.
Okay.
Sorry about misleading you on that. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm sorry too. It's been a lot of gaps
confusing.
between
No, I-
these cases. Okay, so I have some notes for the report. It's a difficult decision, no clear consensus. There will be grading to the property line for development, and it should be integrated it should be considered as part of,
Well, I think the issue
mining.
is we have a restriction on the mining,
mhm.
which once the mine closes, there will be work done in that 200 feet. It seems intuitive that it would be more efficient to make that development, part of this process, but they're two different approvals. And-
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I'm stuck, is we're touching two parts of the elephant and we're not able to come up with an integrated answer for this as a planning commission. So,
And then the other, that if there was relief to the setback, that the planning commission would like to see the ordinance change.
If you want to.
Can I speak again after hearing discussion?
please, come ahead.
Ronald Hicks again from Willow Point. As a neighbor, the development versus multi-years of mining is very different. I understand it's their land and they can put homes in there. But preparing site for homes presumably is not a multi-year event. The mining for 3, maybe 6 years plus, this is what we have to live with. The sound, the noise, the disruption. I get it, they're gonna have to move some dirt to put a road in there. But in terms of my experience as a neighbor, that 500 foot is what protects me from the difficulty of living near an industrial mining site. So if they're going to mine, I really want that 500 feet to stay there so it remains a residential area, not an industrial area. If they're gonna put more residential homes there, not so bad, right? This is a normal process of taking land, preparing it for homes. A really different event. And then as I read through this in preparation for this in section 17, what I sense is it's on the burden of the applicant to assure the commission that there are no serious adverse consequences. I heard someone mention they wouldn't want their neighbors to do this. I've heard someone, I feel bad for the homeowners there. These are signs, right? These are serious adverse consequences for the neighbors. And it's their burden to demonstrate to you all that there's not. And that's when you all would say, okay, there's no concern here, we will give them that waiver. But there are, it's already been noted. And I think it's almost stipulated, right? That it's in their section, it's in that 17.4. It's noise, it's dust, it's pollution, property values. These things will happen to the residential areas right next to this mine.
Thank you. Well, I think, Lene, if you and Ginger could give us a draft of that and circulate it, and we can give you notes on it. I don't know that this is something we need to vote on, but if we could come near to a consensus, I think it would be good.
So would you like to see a draft of that report at the December meeting?
Yes, I think that'd be good. Does that make sense to everybody? And
Sounds
then
lovely.
at that point, we can vote on it and, you know, with any changes we think we need to make, and then send it on to the township board.
Do we need to make a motion that we postpone it until then?
Can I step up from that?
Sure, come on ahead.
Okay.
My name is Kim Hermanette, and I represent Cherry Valley Resources. A couple of things that I just, I was a little confused as to why the board sent this back to the planning commission to send a report back to them. Because it's my understanding that the board voted on this, and Tim, Commissioner Bradshaw, you were there, that they voted on it, and they voted to change it to 200 feet from a property line, correct? So that voting, that passed. And then my understanding was that board member Robertson said that it said and in there, that it had to come back to the planning commission to come back and have them discuss it, correct? But I'm not sure that I understand the whole report back from the planning commission back to the board. What does that accomplish for the board to vote on it once again? I guess I'm not understanding the process.
I'm happy to read it, and the board did not grant the waiver from the residential housing.
Correct. I would say that there seemed to be consensus that a 200-foot setback looked more appetizing and made common sense overall to the board. I would say is maybe accurate.
So but it did change, what is suggested, in my opinion, or my thought, was that they were changing it, instead of having like 2 from 500, was it just changing it to 200 feet from a property line?
But we don't have that. Our ordinance says minimum 100-foot setback from a property line. If you want to offer 200, that's great. That's more than the 100. But to be closer to a house than 500 feet, you need a waiver, whether or not you have a 200-foot property line setback or not. So unless the board said, yes, we're going to do a waiver from the 500 feet, and that's not my understanding that the board approved that waiver.
Right. My understanding, sorry, this is so uncommon to dive this deep into this stuff, but what I recall is the board didn't really have the authorization to make any changes when it came to them. They didn't like what the planning commission sent them. They had some different ideas, and also I think wanted the research double checked because there was some inconsistencies found when people were looking up things on their phone. So I trust that the information that we have tonight is accurate. And that I think they wanted to send their ideas back to the planning commission for consideration. That's what we're kind of doing today. And maybe our opinion doesn't change at all, or maybe we love 200 feet, but I think there's just not a lot of, it's a difficult choice. I mean.
And it's not the most.
No, and I
It's
respect that.
obviously not
I
the
guess
most-
I'm not from, I guess I'm
We're not either.
Yeah.
We're not either. And this is not the most effective way to communicate between two bodies, but this is what's happening.
Well, I guess I was under impression, it was like, okay, the board voted that instead of going with potential of changing the property line from a dwelling, it would be reduced as shown here or changed to 200 feet from the property line, which, falls in line to, more than 250 feet from a dwelling,
Right.
which, as board member Robertson brought up, which is, takes 50 feet from the closest house here, which is the neighbor, closest neighbor to the development or the pit here. So that takes that into consideration, but I guess that's what I guess I'm a little confused as,
I think we need to follow through on what the board's asked for, which we'll do. That's the best we can do.
sure,
And
okay.
if you've heard us tonight,
No, I did, I heard you.
I mean, you
Yep,
understand
yeah.
that we're not operating in a vacuum, and we're not trying
No,
to
I did.
take anything from anybody, but we have to answer back to the township board, and that's what we're gonna do.
Sure,
So,
sure. One more thing, as far as property values and everything, I understand that it's a short time from a mining standpoint. We respect the neighbors. We've tried to do a very good job of taking care of the neighbors. Mr. Zeman is here, Sherry Woods is here. These guys, they know us. We've done a really good job. We've really maintained good relationship with our neighbors. I understand Mr. Hicks, he's down here. I understand his concerns, but we do our best and we try to run a really good, clean operation there. So I do respect their concerns, but we do really try to take care of our neighbors and just ask that you take that into consideration as well.
Well, thank you.
Can I just reread the language, because it is new for all of
Sure,
all
go
of
ahead.
us. So there were two requests. One was to bring this land into the PMR permit to allow mining there. The other was to consider a reduction in the 500-foot separation of mining from an occupied dwelling. And the Township Planning Commission said, yes, we will recommend yes to bringing it into the mining permit. The Planning Commission said no to the waiver.
Correct.
The original waiver would have brought mining to 154 feet.
Yes.
The Township Board got the request. They said, okay, we're in line with the Planning Commission to bring it in, but we're not in line with saying no to the waiver. We're okay with 254 foot versus 154
Okay.
foot.
So
Right.
that's what we need to write our report on.
That's
we're
what the
responding to.
Township Board is sending back, the 200-foot setback, which brings mining as close as 254 feet, not 154
Okay.
feet.
Well, I think I'd like to make a motion that we table this until the December meeting, review the report that we got.
Yeah, and this says, the ordinance says, if the board is considering the recommendation from the Planning Commission, but they want to change the recommendation, because the board's saying no to the 154,
Right.
it's saying yes to 254. It says the board shall first refer such changes back to the Planning Commission for a report thereon within a specified time. After the board receives the report from the Planning Commission, the board may approve, deny, or approve with conditions the application for the permit, whether or not the proposed changes therein have been recommended by the Planning Commission.
Very good. So it's their chance to hear from us, and then they can make the decision,
Yeah.
which is perfect. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Are we still falling in the specified time that we have to get the report back if we do this in December?
Did they give us a time?
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
wondering.
don't think they gave us a specified time.
You guys gave us a lot of not instructions.
Yeah. So I have a motion that I have promulgated here
I'll second.
to table, yeah.
So we're gonna get a document, we'll review it, give feedback, right?
Anything?
So discussion on the motion, my only fear is that tabling slows this down for the applicant. And, cause I think we're gonna get a report at our next meeting regardless. And if we table this, do we then need to open it up one more time and then send it to the board? Cause I don't know,
Okay,
what changes, or, I don't know, if we can take action on the draft report at the next meeting. I just don't.
I don't even know that it says that there's action, it's
Right.
just a report.
okay. So our commitment to ourselves, and we don't have to do this for anybody else, is to have that report available to the township board. Is it possible to do it before they meet again?
Well, we meet on Wednesday, so no.
So no. So the next meeting after that would be our best target, if you need it at a meeting. So
It's either that, or if you need it quicker, we can print our comments and we can give them to you.
Yeah, I don't think this is on fire. I think the applicant would certainly love to mine next spring, but, you know, if we can solve this through the winter, they can probably plan.
Right, is that enough direction for you, Lene and Ginger?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on then. The last item of business under unfinished is consideration of a special land use and site plan for Drive and Shine, a vehicle wash establishment with oil change use at 6949 Broadmoor Avenue Southeast, parcel 412307260001. The use will occupy approximately 4 acres in the northeast corner of the parcel, and this is postponed from July 7th of '25.
Goodness. I'm out of juice, guys. I think that we have considered this request several times. Drive and Shine has taken some effort to address the concerns of the planning commission and staff at previous meetings. This is a special land use because it is a car wash with a drive sort of through operation. I'm gonna skip to my conditions so I
Yeah,
can
go
just
ahead.
remove everything. I think the biggest things are that the applicant provided a berm at the front of the property. There were some concerns about headlights as they exit the 4 different car detailing and wash chambers. So they did provide that berm, which allowed them to reduce some of the shrubbery. Nevertheless, they do have sufficient and ample landscaping. They did state that lighting would be on a timer and dimmed after hours. We've included that as a condition. We do need to have the lighting spreadsheet updated, but they still meet our ordinance standards. That's just for our files. We want a note added to the landscape plan that any plant materials that fail to establish are replaced. We specifically want that in the notes, as well as the condition that at-grade mechanicals be screened and the site be inspected prior to C of O. Another standard requirement is that signage complies with the C2 overlay. No additional signage would be granted. The architectural standards shall be met. We do want to discuss and talk through and see samples of the custom cast stone because we do not allow CMU block. So we want to just see what that cast stone looks like. There was also some clarification they were going to provide regarding the glass. The way I read it in there, it appeared that the glass was green and not clear, that there was still like a green hue to it, but they have a glass sample. We can pass that around. I think those are the biggest things, guys. There was something that talked about evergreen tinted glass, so I think that is what I was noting. So there was just some confusion with some of the notes on that, on the elevations, which need to be corrected. But if I'm missing, the pilaster, pilasters need to project 3 inches from the building wall, and they don't appear to be 18 inches in width. So I'm sure you'll all fix that so we can see that those pilasters meet that requirement. I know you added pilasters, but I don't think that they meet the dimensional requirements. So,
And I
yeah.
feel like they probably don't meet the architectural desire either. There's apparently 2 of them, and they're not very regularly spaced. The idea is to break up the facade, or to give it more character than just a blank wall. And so what I'm seeing on here doesn't really meet that.
So we've added a condition that they meet those requirements, so whether we're comfortable with them working it out with staff,
I think so.
so, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Mike Hausman. I'm one of the landowners. I'm also with Wolverine Building Group. And I gotta hand it to Lene. We have been working on this a long time. She's been very diligent, very helpful, and I think we're there. I apologize for the late evening for you guys. I've sat on planning
It's not your
commissions
fault.
well,
It's not
I
your
just know
fault.
I've been on planning commission
You just
for
drew the,
12
you just
years.
drew the short straw.
I know, I saw it, I was the last on the agenda, and I thought the ones before it, I'm like, that's not too bad. Well, I should have knocked on wood. I just wanted to correct a few things really quick. On the first page of Lene's notes, it said that traffic study has to be reviewed and approved by MDOT. They have reviewed that. We've submitted that as part of our the whole review process with Todd Borman, the city engineer, or township engineer, and he has some correspondence with them to confirm that they're okay with that, and where we have our exit for our property and how it lines up with the Michigan left. And there is some emails from Todd. There's just been so many emails, it's hard to catch them all. Let's see. Any mechanical rooms outside will definitely be screened. However, there really isn't any. Their vacuums are inside. So their vacuum equipment. The dumpster enclosure is the only thing out, and we will cover that. Adhering to the township engineer's items that he gave us, we agree 100% to that.
Can you just pause real quick?
Yeah.
I think I heard there were no exterior vacuums, and I just wanna double check that.
No, so the vacuum system itself that creates the vacuum is inside. The only thing that's outside, and we moved them to the back on the side, is just the hose. So you don't hear it, it's just like you'd see it, the smaller car washes, they stick into a tube and you don't hear them, and then you pull it out and you just start vacuuming, but the machine is inside the building.
There's a vacuum house shown on your print there on the left, I guess the lower left. It's probably only a 6x6 building, but you do have a little, it's outside. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there are gonna be vacuum
My
bays.
apologies.
I just wanted the story to be accurate for the
I'm
decision
sorry,
makers.
my apologies, but they do have it on the inside. I'm going for my tours because some of you are new to this body here, and this is not your normal car wash. So the vacuum pumps for the indoor vacuums are all inside. So my apologies, I missed that, and we definitely will screen that 100%.
There are outdoor vacuums too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
If you recall, those had been up front, but we had moved those to the side.
Yeah.
Yep.
Recommendation
Yep.
of the plan.
And then the discussion on the glass, Lene and I had some good correspondence on it. If you'd like me to pass this around, this is the glass, and it is noted on the plan. It's really hard to see. This is a little heavy, but that's just clear, low E glass, 100%. And
Looks pretty
when
good.
you look at,
I like it.
when you look at the plan, obviously, it's hard to depict the color on here, so looking at that, it could appear blue or green, and unfortunately, the note is really tiny. It's right down here, it says, it's talking about the aluminum here, aluminum framing is green, and then it says on note 19, glass shall be clear, low E, no tint, right here. And that's for all of our glass. The one item, Lene, you had said, you and I talked about, there was a note number 6 and note number 3 that were it was a mislabel on one of the elevations. Yeah, east elevation, yeah. And we did correct it on this one, so that's been changed, we picked that up.
And then you have the block that you were gonna share?
I do. So this is the brick. They did not have that physical bricks, you know, I have a board for the other one. So this is predominantly the brownstone for the body of the building. So your browns in here. And then below here, we had originally talked about a split face block. There's, using CMU as a term, it's difficult because everything's concrete masonry unit, no matter what it is. So it's really hard to depict. So what we're proposing is for, and let's pull that brownstone out there. So I'm gonna turn it around this way first, and if, I don't know if you can zoom in to this one here.
Oh, we can pass it around too.
Yeah, it's heavy, I can pass it around if you want.
Maybe slide it, yeah.
Yeah, so this block right here is what we're proposing for the lower accent band. And that's a cultured, 4-inch deep, stone. And this is the texture of it, right here. So that's our color. And then for the upper part of the elevations, for all this white banding here, that you see above for accent, we'll be using the same material, but in the white, right here. And this comes in several dimensions, and we intend to, I just want to get clarification on the ordinance, because there's a part in there on one of the sections that talks about it can't be more than 4 inches high, but they come in 4-inch, 8-inch, and 12-inch basically, nominal, not actual. Actual is 11 5/8, 3 5/8. But it is a cultured stone. It's a very nice looking stone, and I really believe that you know, going back through the recommendations with Lene, we agree with everything, and I believe we meet even some of the things above in the first part of the recommendation. I went back to the 16.2, and it does say that that item was met. If you want me to go through those, I can, but, and then on the pilasters, that was not picked up properly. It is only showing a 2-inch, and I don't know, the only thing I can think of is why they didn't do 3 is because blocks are in basically 2, 4, 8-inch increments. So I think they did a 2-inch, and we'll probably want to take it to a 4-inch instead of 3. And we will add them in on that, because I did read the ordinance, they want them every 40 feet. And it was really hard to see them. I just figured I was missing some of them, but we would agree to all those conditions and hopefully find favor and receive special land use approval and site plan approval this evening. And if anybody has any questions on operations or anything, you know, the new members of the board would be great. I'd be happy to answer them.
Can I go first?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I'll start with an easy one. I don't see a van accessible handicap space. You do have 2 handicap spaces, but neither of them are van accessible. Can we make sure?
I would have to
I believe that is required by building code.
Dennis Cole with Paradigm Design. If that's the case, we can certainly rectify that.
It looks like you're using the 5-foot wide sidewalk as your, and you would need 8 feet right there. So
Yeah, typically, yeah, that sidewalk access must have been added after the fact. So we'll make sure that the spot is van accessible in compliance.
Perfect, that was the easiest one. The next easiest one is the easement on the north side of the property where you tie into the gas station. Have you already renegotiated that change?
We have not finalized that negotiation yet. We intend to, you know, they've already made their connection, so our intent is to just connect to where they are at. as I read the ordinance before, was a requirement that they allow access to that point.
Okay, so as your plan is drawn, are you confident that you can build it?
Yes,
Or-
100%.
So you are still in negotiation then, because based on what's shown on the
We
drawing?
have
you
not
don't
signed
that easement.
any easement agreements with them until we get through this process. I mean, we can't build it, if we don't get site plan approval. But we have, contacted Circle K and real estate, department there.
I guess, so my concern, let's move your plan so that we can see it on our screen.
Move this way?
Or zoom out a little, Renee.
Yep,
Oh,
I can zoom out.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we've got a 66-foot access easement. Obviously, your road is outside of a portion of it. How can I approve your plan if you don't have legal right to build your plan? That's what I'm asking.
Well, here's our, plan B is basically, if they won't allow us to tie in here, we do have access here.
Okay, so you would.
And we can just rework the drive.
It was
So we're-
really to get around those trees, right? Was the
Right.
goal?
Yep. We're trying to, originally they were trying to preserve these trees right
I
here.
think there's a light pole right in the middle there too, but.
Yeah,
that's
there
not-
is, and those are decent trees. There's not many decent trees here. They're mostly scrub, but,
Okay,
And certainly, if we did have to go that route, we'd have to replace those trees with something that would comply with the ordinances. But obviously, the intent is to avoid those, work with Circle K, shift the access easement the way it is.
and our broker has been dialoguing with Circle K's real estate department.
thank you. And my last one, the access road on the south side of the site, as far as I can tell, has no stormwater capture. Can't or shouldn't we capture that water and get it to the detention pond?
Absolutely. And the overall plan for which we obtained the wetland permit does show all of the stormwater being captured in various number of ponds that have been already approved through the process with Eagle.
And it's been reviewed by Todd Borman, not necessarily approved, but reviewed by Todd.
Yeah, we'll be working directly with him on that, but the discharge from that access drive will be directed either toward the pond on site here or the adjacent pond that will be constructed in accordance with the wetland permit.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
But those let me just clarify that those ponds that are not shown on here, you would have to come back in for a grading plan review and
Correct.
approval, and that comes back to planning
For
commission.
this area here.
Or
And
a
the only-
site plan for a
Right.
development.
And the only reason we haven't is we don't have users for that spot yet, so. But we do have the storm line designed through there. And he has worked with Todd on that quite a bit, and I would imagine you've seen it too, so.
Any thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm missing just one little piece of the puzzle here. It says, the memorandum that we have talks about the site being partially zoned C2 commercial. What's the other part of it?
Want to explain that?
Yeah.
So originally, the property was somewhat split in its zoning. And so at the recommendation of the Township Board and actually Planning Commission, we rezoned the portion that will be commercial, shown commercial here, to C2. The remainder of it is zoned rural residential, I believe, and that's.
Oh, okay,
that's
so the
offline.
entire piece that we're looking at here is all in the C2?
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
And everything, to the west is pretty much not.
It's still the
usable.
rural residential?
Yeah, but there's so many wetlands and everything, it's not usable.
Okay.
It'll stay open space forever, so.
Anybody else? Anybody feel a motion?
I'll put a motion out there. Let me do my first one.
Go ahead.
Motion to, approve the special land use, as provided to us here.
Subject to the planner's letter dated November 12th,
Yep.
Yes.
but maybe striking concern about non-reflective glass based on the applicant's dialogue and sample brought in?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard
Yes.
to read on that
Adding the
sample,
van
but
accessible.
it says it's clear loading
Yeah.
right on it, yeah.
And adding the requirement for one handicap van accessible space.
That's better than I could have done myself.
We usually tag team those. We do.
I
We do,
supported
we
that.
collaborate.
We got support on that?
Yep.
Got support? Let's see if I can remember people's names. I'll only use my cheat sheet.
I can help you out.
Yeah, we can see the names.
Yeah, we need to have them on both
Roll
sides.
call vote. Bradshaw,
Yes.
Visser,
Yes.
Clement,
Yes.
McLean,
Yes.
Everly votes yes.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to us. Thank you.
No, we appreciate it, and I wrote a big note on the top of here, cause I've heard it a lot, is that corridor is the gateway to,
Yeah.
Caledonia Township, and I can't think of anything more cool than this. This is,
That's okay.
these are very, very nice and unique, so.
I appreciate you building here.
All right. So,
So we're adjourned?
no. We gotta
thank
go
you.
through all the gyrations. No public comments, since there's no public. I'm not gonna call for that. Any commissioners' comments?
My hockey game starts in
All right,
29 minutes.
all right. Any staff updates and correspondence?
Just that we'll have the December 15th meeting. We will approve our schedule for next year, look at the bylaws. We have the Big Beat coming back. That was next to Culver's. They paused on it, so they need to come back for a special use and site plan for a drive-through.
Okay,
And, that's all I have right now.
I'm gonna make a motion for
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice job, John.
Motion carries.
It was not an easy meeting to run. You handled it well.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
I'm glad I had dinner before this.
They used to say, bring your lunch. So are you part of the Visser construction folks? or-
No, my people are attorneys.
Okay,
Yeah.
hence the confidence sitting in front of a crowd and
Yeah.
asking them the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it doesn't bother me. Dennis, good to see you, man. Hey, good. Last time I saw you working at Ottawa County.
Yeah, that was a while back.
Yeah, you're not there anymore.
No, I worked at Niederelm for a little bit, and I'm at Paradigm Designs.
Paradigm.
Paradigm, yeah.
Was that the party that was doing, that says Arizona offices?
That's right, I have an Arizona office as well, so.
You do?
Yeah.
Are you Paradigm?
Is it your company?
Oh, okay.
I wish. The owner is currently down in Arizona though. At the office, yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think
great
you
job.
did a great job.
Thank you. Well, I don't know about that, but it's over.
No, you did.
That's what we celebrate. Are you still in the neighborhood?
No, I live up in